There is a theory that I have. Let me posit to you and get you to react. The Democrats currently control the House of, the Senate in Virginia by 4 seats, 22-18. The House is controlled by Republicans by 3 seats, 49-46. I believe that big donors have convinced Team Youngkin, the governor, that if he can pour a bunch of money in and maintain the House of Delegates or increase the Republican lead there and take back the Democrats, take back the Senate from the Democrats, that they will convince him to run for president of the United States and as the guy that knows how to politically turn a purple state back. Do you agree with that? And how likely do you think that scenario is?
So I think I definitely think we're going to keep the House. I think we're also going to end up taking the Senate. I think it's going to be very close. I could see a 2020 tie in the Senate with Lieutenant Governor Sears breaking the tie, and it would be only, I believe, the second time in Virginia history since since the 19th century that we will have had such an arrangement in Virginia, and so it would be incredible. And it would give us a couple of years to actually roll back some of the very bad policies the Democrats put in place when they were in charge for 2 years. And would that raise the governor's, I think he's already very prominent nationwide, but would his raise his prominent even more? Yeah, I think it would. And I think it would for good reason. Not if he only helps swing back the Virginia legislature, but then actually makes good on the legislative and the policy promises that we've told Virginians we would do if we're, especially around things like school choice.
Right.
If he could do that, he would deserve to have this sort of prominence. Now, do I think he would run for president this election cycle? No, I don't think he would. I think he's very committed to. I think he's very committed to getting an agenda through the Commonwealth. Now, again, I don't speak for the governor. Right. I'm not claiming to speak for the governor, but I do think that he would. Yeah, if all those things took place, which I think they could. That is, we keep the House, we take the Senate, and then we push a good, sound, reasonable, conservative policies through the Virginia legislature. And we roll back some of the other really bad policies that the Democrats put in place, like tying our environmental policy to an unelected board in California, right? If we can do that, well, then yes, he's going to gain and increase national prominence, and rightfully so. But if you were to ask me today, I don't think he's going to then leave the governor's mansion in order to run for president. I think he's going to focus on getting that policy through. And then after that, I definitely think he'll have a political future beyond the governor's office. And again, if we can get all that done, gosh, rightfully so.
Exactly. Nick, thank you for being with us. I really appreciate the messages that you're putting out and the time that you've taken to share that with us. And more importantly, your commitment to making sure that we keep a Republican House in Virginia.
It's my pleasure. Thank you again, Sean.
You bet. All right, I want to introduce my friend and colleague, Liz Wheeler, the host of The Liz Wheeler Show. She's been out front on cultural issues, talking about things that affect all of us. And as we head towards another election, she's somebody to add to your follow list on X, Liz_Wheeler. She's got a brand new book out, Hide Your Children, Exposing the Marxists Behind the Attack on America's Kids, which think about what's happened after COVID and how important this is. You can get the book at hideyourchildrenbook.com or Amazon. It's my pleasure to welcome into the show Liz Wheeler. Hey, Liz, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sean. It's my pleasure.
I know how busy book week launches are, and so I appreciate you making time for us. Let me ask you a question. I thought the title of the book is fascinating, Hide Your Children, because on the one hand, I think to myself as a parent, I want to expose them. I want them to know what's going on. I want them to know right from wrong. And so I guess the thing that's interesting is from a title standpoint, what is the tactic that you're trying to get across to parents? Do you want them to shelter them? Do you want them to get out in front of these issues? What is it that you want parents to know and do?
The title serves 2 purposes. The first purpose is to add a bit of levity to an otherwise pretty intense topic. The title was actually inspired by that viral YouTube video from a couple of years ago, the Antoine Dodson video where he goes, hide your kids, hide your wives. I thought it was funny. I thought it would add a little bit of levity to this topic, but I do think it's important for us as parents to shelter or give our children shelter from the evil of the world as they become equipped to handle it. Now, this doesn't mean sheltering them to the point where they have no idea what's going on in the outside world once they become adults. It doesn't mean not equipping them to be able to handle reality or at least the reality of the environment we're living in right now. But it is important when they're young to properly order their minds, to properly order their morals, to instill in them what is right before they're exposed to what is wrong, so that they recognize wrong when they see it and aren't so confused. So yes, I am encouraging parents to give their children some shelter from the indoctrination and the brainwashing that otherwise kids experience on TikTok, at school, and on every TV show they watch, on YouTube, everywhere possible. The left is trying to get inside our children's minds.
You know, it's funny. I'm probably the evil parent right now because my kids are 12, about to be 13, and they still don't have phones.
Good for you.
Well, but it's funny because I'll have this conversation with a parent who will say, "Oh, I would have loved to have done that," as if the kid is in charge. I'm like, I don't think you get the relationship. And there's too many parents who I feel like they'll say like, "Oh, you don't let your kids watch this or that, listen to explicit music or watch." And I feel like sometimes they've lost the role of parents. They'll look at me and be like, "Oh, I wish I could have done that." And I'm like, I'm sorry, did the 12-year-old make all the money, or like what's going on in the relationship here where you're subservient to their needs? Do you think that that's part of the problem, is that parents have just given in and said, they had to have a phone, they have to be able to watch these movies or listen to this music?
I think you're raising your children in a very wise way. I also am raising my daughter not watching TV. She will not be getting a phone as long as I can possibly help it, because of these influences that are coming after our kids. The difficult part is that even if we don't give our children phones, even if we don't let them run rampant on YouTube, you send them to school in a classroom, and every other kid in the class has a phone and has access to this information. And so they get exposed to this information, whether it's directly or indirectly, which is why it's incumbent on us, as you said, to be parents, to instill what is right in our children when they're in their formative years, so that by the time they encounter what is wrong, they understand the proper order of things, and they understand when things are disordered. They can recognize it, and then they can learn to handle it as it approaches them, since it will. It's one of the things I talk about in my book. The left has been trying to re-engineer our society for a long time. Right. This isn't a new effort. It's been going on for almost a century. But there is a concerted effort to try to co-opt our children's minds right now. And I think a lot of people recognized it for the first time, just how insidious this is. Maybe during COVID, when they saw, looking over their children's shoulder during Zoom school, they saw critical race theory and trans ideology, moral relativism, all kinds of nasty stuff being poured in their children's minds. And they were like, whoa, wait a second. This is very different than the tinges of liberalism that I encountered in college back in the day. It's very different. And so what I do in my book is I unpack who's behind these attacks. I name the names of the people that are behind the capture of these institutions, whether it's media like YouTube and TikTok or Hollywood, whether it's the education system, our children's classrooms, whether it's sadly religious institutions or the law or the assault on the family unit and the elements of the family unit. I name the names of the people behind this assault so that we can recalibrate, as conservatives and as a Republican Party apparatus, we can recalibrate our fighting tactics, because the Republican Party has not done a good job fighting back against these assaults in the last 50 or 60 years.